So I just wanted to kind of talk about the entire physical count process, not even only what happens in Counterpoint, but what you would want to consider for your physical count to prepare your inventory to make it easier, to make it more efficient, to make it more accurate. So let's start with what happens prior to your physical count. Well, first of all, you've got to, of course, set the day and, line up all your people who are going to be doing the counting. But before, even just after that, I've got this kind of list here I'm going to share with you. Prep your items. Make sure the barcodes are readable. You replace them if you need to. As much as possible, make sure the barcodes are facing front so people are scanning, if they're using handheld scanners, scanning the right information. And then verify that the item has the correct label. If you're looking at a medium blue shirt, that your label reflects that you have a medium blue shirt. And then open up the boxes that have been opened. Open them up and make sure that they contain the items that are part of the label, or that the box isn't even empty, because you wouldn't want to count a box of items that actually has no items in it. So that's some of the things you can do to prepare the inventory or your stock for your physical count. The other thing you want to do is, if you're doing a full count as opposed to a cycle count, you want to map your store, because you're going to count every area of the store. And you're going to estimate your areas to be about 45 minutes of counting. 30 minutes is okay. An hour is probably, the maximum you want to go. Then estimate, map out your store, draw out the areas. Try and make it for about, 45 minutes of scanning if you're using handhelds, or 45 minutes to an hour of writing things down. So that would be just, breaks for people, honestly. Decide what you're going to do if items are delivered the day before or the day of your inventory. Are you going to count them? Are you not going to count them? How do you separate them from the count that you are doing if you're not counting them? And then the odds and ends. Everybody has them, those odd items that haven't sold, they're singular on the stock. Or if you're holding items for customers to pick up, try and get the items to be picked up by the customer or the vendors, or make your adjustments if you're kind of waiting on that. But finish processing or place them back into inventory so that you can count them. So the next thing would be is you could, if you wanted to on a full inventory, pre-count the back stock if you wanted to. And in order to do that, you're going to want to stock the shelves in the sales area so you don't move inventory back and forth between back stock and sales. Now, the purpose of counting the back stock is because on the day of the inventory, it will take less time if you only have to count your sales floor. So counting the back stock, you don't actually have to import it or enter it into Counterpoint right then, just get it counted. Mark, how are you going to mark those things that are counted? And this could work for the day of as well. Are you going to use sticky notes? Are you going to use a marker to put a dot on things? Or are you going to, use I don't know what else, dots, those stick-on dots or something to say that you've counted it? How are you going to indicate that you've counted the items and they don't need to be recounted? Next is, start cleaning up your data transactions. Complete your receivings or your RTVs, complete your transfers. It is better not to have any transfers in transit when you're counting. So any transfers going out, either hold them back and wait. Don't implement it. Don't send them. You're going to count them with your inventory. Any transfers that are coming in, make sure you receive them. And then inventory adjustments. Are there any other, things holding out there? Are there inventory adjustments out there, point of sale holds or quotes that you need to clean up? And then orders and layaways. Are the items still here? If not, let's release and ticket those orders or layaways that where the inventory is gone. So, and then I've added this to my list here. Prepare your data collection units. Many of you have data collection units or you rent data collection units. Some of those units are, we sell MIMS, which is a data collection unit. AMLs we rent or sell, and then of course there are other ones like the 2B Solutions data collection units. Charge them up, make sure they're all charged, and then, you know, update the units with your latest item list. That could be the day before, it could be the week before. Anything new items that are added during the week after you've updated the units, you want to make sure they're not going to be received. So if they are going to be received and going to be counted, you probably want to wait till maybe the day of or the day before to update with the latest item list. And then test the unit. Make sure that it is collecting the data. Make sure that it is either for MIMS, you're sending it or uploading it to Counterpoint, or for like the AMLs, you're downloading and importing the data into Counterpoint. So make sure that everything is functioning properly so you don't have a panic on the day of the inventory. So, day of inventory. Oh, our recommendation, our best, most accurate inventory is when your store is closed. But knowing that you can't always do that, potentially a cycle count is better for you, or counting your back stock first and then getting people in early before the store opens to start the count, even if you won't be finished with it before the store opens. Again, double check that all your transactions are posted, layaways and orders are released, RTVs and purchase adjustments. You may not have used it, but there is a utility in Counterpoint called Work Center. And I'll show it to you in a minute, but the Work Center will show you all the unposted transactions that you have, except for anything from point of sale. So anything that works with a batch would be in the Work Center. And the other thing is, you know, check your sales. Make sure that your point of sale edit list is clear of past transactions. So you want to, you know, anything that's going to impact the quantity you're going to want to count, you want to make sure is completed. The other thing is recalculate item quantities. Recalculate by NCR standards should only be used once, and that's when you're a first-time user and you're loading in your data for your inventory before you even start your first sale in Counterpoint. However, it's become a bit more necessary with all of the customizations, web integrations that send inventory information in and out of Counterpoint. So recalculating the quantities has become something a little bit more common. Now, if you have open transfers, you don't want to do that because it doesn't calculate those transfer quantities correctly. And then be cautious if the quantity on hand changes for gridded items. What you're really expecting out of recalculate on quantities, and it's going to change your commitments, and it might change your, you know, orders or your purchase orders or something. Quantity on hand for normal items will not change, but the quantity on hand for gridded items is actually held in a specific grid detail table and will update the inventory location table where your cost is held, and that's why it's a little bit cautious. But it should really only, if everything's working properly with your integrations, should really only have very few, none, or maybe just commitments being updated. Print your valuation report. Always important to the accounting people that you know what you started with before you counted. So the valuation report is going to show you that. And then, you know, I'm going to get off this list for a minute, but remove any physical counts from the past, create a physical count worksheet. I'm going to move over to Counterpoint right now and just kind of go through the process in Counterpoint itself. So first of all, I said, oh, there's that great Work Center. Under System, there is Work Center. And the Work Center comes up and it shows you all of these great open transactions. Well, not so great because I haven't completed them, but it has inventory adjustments. It'll tell you the inventory adjustment. It'll tell you the batch that it's part of. It'll tell you the date that it's part of. So here I have an inventory adjustment from 2023. Well, at this point, maybe I've already taken care of it somewhere else, or maybe it still needs to be done, but I want to make sure I post all of these. You don't have to worry about anything on a purchase order unless you should have received it already, or a purchase request, because even posting them does not impact inventory. However, your receivings you want to post and your return to vendors. And if you have access to that batch, you can just pick this and post it right from here if you want to. But I'm, a bit of a control freak, so I usually go right to the source, to the inventory adjustment, to take a look at those items directly to see what I'm doing. That is your Work Center. And again, it'll show you everything except point of sale. So for point of sale, you're going to want to go to your point of sale tickets edit list. And when you look at your edit list, if your store is open, you could, put in yesterday's date here. You could choose to print the items or not. Maybe I need the items or maybe I don't. And then I'm not going to worry about any of this other stuff, leave it all open. But when you look at this, any unposted transactions shouldn't, if it's from yesterday or before, they shouldn't be here. They should be posted. So clean this up. If there are error messages, make sure that you fix those error messages. Okay. And then release orders and layaways. Well, of course, there's an orders report and there's a layaways report. Review those reports and make sure that anything that has gone, and you might have to track it down with the salesperson or manager, make sure anything that has actually been given or released to the customer, delivered to the customer, is now released in Counterpoint and a sale has been recorded. So now we've got everything cleaned up, ready to go. You're going to want to do this, maybe the week before so you get the older stuff done, but you're also going to want to do it the day of to make sure that anything that has happened since you've gone through it once, you get it again. Now I'm ready to say, yay, I'm ready. Let's go to, I should tell you, by the way, the recalculate is under inventory utilities, recalculate inventory quantities. These recalculate quantities has the same filters you would find in any kind of report. And when you preview this, oh, so awesome if every time you preview it, there's nothing here. However, as you can see, my list is a little bit busy. I think I need to stop messing around with my data. Anyway, this is what this is telling me. See, the commitment is great. So it's telling me that it just looked through the whole system for any commitments, and it found one, and what I have is my inventory says there are none. So it's going to update the commitment quantity with that one that it did find. And so if I go keep looking through, I've got purchase orders, back orders, transfers here, special orders, layaways, drop ships POs. Here, my commitment is 2, it only found 1, so it's taking 1 away. It's going to make my commitments look exactly like what they should be for the transactions that are open on hand. So you really don't have to think too much about these, commitments, POs. It's just taking a look and calculating up what is there. Again, anytime it says quantity on hand, though, that's the one you want to be concerned about. So, 3 inventory cell differences. Doesn't necessarily make me happy. This is what it looks like. I've got a difference on, so here, min, max. Not sure what I did there. The min quantity and the detail of the min quantity is different. So it'll change that. Min-max is, again, not something to worry about. This is the column that is most concerning, is the quantity on hand column. So that is your recalculate. Now we're going to go and do the valuation report, and that's under inventory reports. So I'm in inventory reports, and it is the valuation report. The valuation report is always at the time that you run the report. So you definitely want to make sure you haven't started selling. If you've got to leave your store open, make sure you do this before you start selling. And you can set a location. If you have multiple locations and you're only doing one location at a time, set a location. Here my quantity on hand is not equal to 0, and I don't have any other filters. However, if I were doing a cycle count, I would set the item filters for what my cycle is, and it could be a category, subcategory, some attribute that you're using, or a profile code that you're using to identify what your cycle count is. Preview the report. Oops, I hate it when it does that. Preview the report, and it's going to give you a total. Well, when you do that, man, it's going to drive me crazy. Thank you very much. The bottom of your report tells you what you have on hand, and this is what your accounting team is looking for. Is they're looking for these numbers, what your quantity is, what your cost on hand is. Sorry, that's the second column. What your cost is, what your retail value is, and what is this other one? Sorry, last cost. So average cost, last cost being replacement cost, and then your retail value. So what you want to do up here when you preview a report, there's that envelope with the red arrow. Use that. Save this in your system and save it. Sorry, it asks you. I'm going to go over here. It asks you for a place to save it, and I actually have a place to save it. I'm just going to get to my C drive here. I have a count file, and now this is not going to be just brief, but this is going to be before count. And I'm going to save that. And I'm a data hoarder. You know, people hoard different things. I hoard data. So these reports are great that now I can save them electronically. I fill up my hard drive with them. But I usually have them organized that this is now for my physical count 2024. This is my before count report. And I'm doing that on the day of. Now, at this point, you know, I've got the store closed. I've got my handhelds already. I could send people out to be counting right now while I'm doing all this internal stuff in Counterpoint, you know, posting that transactions, recalculating quantities, the inventory valuation report. Those people can start counting. They don't have to wait for me, and I don't have to start well before them. I probably should start before them, but not really that far before them. Now I'm ready to prepare the physical count program. So again, in inventory, there is this physical count menu, and here are all your physical count buttons. The create will create a copy, it's going to copy the inventory transactions from the inventory records with all the quantities and the costs into physical count tables. And because those physical count tables are not affected by sales, receiving, RTVs, you know, adjustments, it's considered the frozen quantity. But before I do that, I always like to check the remove. There's a reason to check the remove first. If I have a physical count in here that has not been finished, you know, what's the date on it? Did I really mean to leave it open? Was it just a practice round? If I'm doing a full count, might as well get rid of it because I'm going to recount it all anyway. However, if it was a cycle count, I probably want to leave it alone. If I have that, I'm just going to show you what happens if I don't remove. When I go to create my physical count, I'm going to set my location. And again, there's some filters you can use for a cycle count, inventory selection. I'm going to create. When it comes across, I'm already in there. My bad. When it comes across the physical count, enter, go away that one. And I should be able to do this now. See this, the skip, replace all. If you have items in your physical count tables that you are wanting to get rid of, you're going to overwrite them anyway. This is the long way to do it. You can go and select skip or skip all if you want, but really the faster way to do that is to go to the physical count remove, you know, just kind of review what's out there with your preview and then choose remove to get rid of them all. Some of you have some fairly significant inventory out there. Not sure what happened there. It'll come back. But some of you have some fairly significant inventory items out there, and it would be, you know, inventory lists out there. It's better to just do the remove first. Here we go. So I'm going to pick the remove, which is now over here. I'm going to preview it. It's got stuff to remove, and then I will just get rid of it. Yeah, I don't want all that. That's actually what I already created. Remove it. And if you want to be sure it's gone, another place to look, of course, is here, physical count, enter. Any transactions that you do, as long as these are grayed out, you don't have any transactions waiting for you to work with. So again, let's go to create. I need to create my physical count. I'm doing a full physical count at the end of the year, so I am not going to limit this list at all. I'm going to create. If I do not have some kind of electronic handheld unit to collect inventory counts with, I can use the worksheet that's here. And the worksheet has the items, it has the count, and it has, you know, checked by if you're sharing the spreadsheet with other people. And it will have the whole list. I'm going to get rid of that because, well, I have electronic handhelds now. So I'm ready now to start entering what those counts are. And again, if I have a handheld such as, you know, our MIM solution or the AMLs that you might have rented from us or ones you've purchased from us, you would collect it on that and you would start uploading that information from something like MIMS or 2B, which is directly connected, or from the AMLs, you would upload the file. If you're uploading the file, I'm just going to show you this because I created an account file and open with add. What your file may look like is it may have a header row, and it will tell you, you know, item number, description, and what your quantity is. Item quantity. Get rid of that here. All right. And it's basically that's telling you what's in every file. So if you're uploading from a file, this is column 1 because it is comma separated. There's my comma. This is column 2 before my next column, and this is column 3. So knowing that information will help you with the import. Again, if you're using a service that is directly uploading and filling out the counts, then on those handhelds, you really just need to press that button that says upload or send, whatever it says on your handheld unit. However, if you're using a unit that creates a file, then you need to go and find your file, which I have to find here, count. And here's my file. I'm going to open. You always want to make sure, I should say, it's preferred and probably best if you have a comma separated value file for import. The counts are for, you know, pick your location. Make sure that field number is that column that I said they were. You want to make sure that you know what your file format looks like. But field number 1 or anything before that first comma is field 1. That's my item. Anything after that second column, quantity, that's field 3. I can put in additional information about who counted it or not if I wanted to. I can save these parameters if I wanted to. The advanced button here is allowing me to choose something other than comma. So my choices for this file, that I can import, it's either a comma separated value, a tab separated value, that is a piped none and a question mark, and then this last one is that tilde that's in your upper left corner of your keyboard, but it's that wavy horizontal line. It's called a, I know you didn't know it had a name, it does, tilde. Anyway, you can verify this. Now, a lot of the handhelds that we're working with, we're going to update the data in that handheld. So as you go along, it should be verifying that the item that you just scanned is part of the inventory anyway. And if you're doing that, then the handheld should have already verified everything that went in the handheld. Anything that is rejected by the handheld can be, put aside, dealt with separately from the ones that you're actually scanning. And because it's all verified, you can just go right to import. You don't need to verify it again. I'm going to hit the verify button because I want to make sure you understand what it says. When you're looking at verify, it has big red letters at the top that says it's a verify process. Here, it started the import. It has one error. It's updated 26 lines. And it even has line 1 is rejected because it couldn't convert the data for item quantity on hand to a value of an integer, number 1 or 2 or 3, plus the fact that item number, item E_NO, is not actually an item SKU in my inventory. So it's rejected this on 2 levels. But I always expect one error, so this is a good message, and I can go right to import. Still get the same error message, still line 1, still one error. I'm happy, that's done. You can also, if you have handhelds and you have people to manually enter, you could also do a manual enter. Now, only one person can enter physical counts at a single time. So you're not going to be able to have 2 people doing this work, only going to be one. I'm just going to pick an item, that one. Okay, here, this is my imported value. It always imports to count quantity 1. So those are my imported values. If I have another file and I want to import, and this item is contained in that other file, it will add to this. So I'm going to import that same file again. Not something you want to do in your own physical count, not a good thing, but here's my counts again. Yeah, that one, 2023. Here, do that. I'm saying it's 1, 3, and I'm going to import it. When you do that, Counterpoint adds those counts together. So I'm going to go and pick my item again. And now you can see it's still importing into count quantity 1. I have 5 other count quantity fields to work with, but it did double up my number because I imported the same file again. It's always going to add to this. In the Counterpoint programming, if I add in more of these count quantities, Counterpoint, when it's looking at it for either an edit list or for posting, it's going to add all these 6 count quantity fields together. So as far as Counterpoint is concerned, you just counted 72 of these items, not the 62 in count quantity 1. So again, if you are manually writing down and entering your counts, you can take, let's say I have 3 teams, I can assign a count quantity field to each of the 3 teams, and Counterpoint will add them together. There's no need for me to have a separate document then I'm actually adding it all up for Counterpoint. Counterpoint will do the work for me. Okay. So after everything's counted, all the counts are entered or imported, I need to double check what's going on, and that's where the edit list is going to be useful. In the edit list, I have my physical count edit list. I have several views, so no grid information, list grid information, or the grid view. I tend to work with the list. I think it's a little bit, I can more quickly understand what's going on with the item if I put it in a list as opposed to a grid. And if I don't have gridded items, it won't matter what my selection is because normal items wouldn't need a grid or a list. On my parameters tab, what quantities do I want to print? So the default is frozen and actual counts. I could choose just actual counts, but I want to check things. And what I want to do is check what counts I've entered against what is considered frozen or part of my physical count tables. So frozen, actual counts, and variance, because I want to see what the discrepancies are. So I always pick this one. Let's make this really quick. I want to see what the problems are. Include uncounted items. You're going to want to include uncounted items. And the reason you want to include uncounted items, what if Counterpoint says you have 50 of these and nobody counted a single one? That's a problem. So I'm going to include uncounted items because I want to see the variance on uncounted items. And here it says print the variance for uncounted items. Absolutely. Now, this next one to me makes your work much easier if you print non-zero variances only. At this point, what we're doing is we're checking. We want to send people back for recounts if there's really a huge discrepancy. So print non-zero variances only. And then we're not doing serialized or serial numbers, but if you are, you're going to want to show the serialized or serial number detail. I'm going to turn that off for the moment though. And I'm going to preview this. Oh, another checkbox, group by category if you want. My list isn't nearly that bad or big, so I'm just going to preview this. And what I'm going to see, let's go look at that atom CL2 here. Here I have that item that we know we put a count in on. It says 62, 5, and 5, but it has a total of 77. Oh yeah, that is wrong. Oh, sorry, we have a total of 77 on hand. I counted 72, so the discrepancy here is -5. Now, there's a $778 discrepancy here. I'm thinking, yeah, I think I want to send somebody out to go and see if they can recount this and tell me that there are still 72 or if there are 77 or if somebody missed those 5 from somewhere. Definitely want to recount this one because wow, that is really far off. Anyway, this is what you're looking at here. Now, sometimes when you do this list, I always open it the first time and see how many pages it is. Well, mine's not that big because it's only 7 pages, but yours might be, a lot more. Well, maybe you want to reduce this list and focus on those things that are of, higher value. So value, I'm just going to put in 10,000 because, again, my data is all skewed. Plus or minus $10,000 in the variance, or quantity, plus or minus 130. So I think I have a lot of those. And let's preview that again. So here I have this value variance. There's 232, but remember my value is 10,000. It's still showing this $5,000 difference because it met the filter of the quantity variance, that plus or minus 130. So they work independent of each other. An item has to meet either one or the other. Counterpoint doesn't care if it meets both. It just has to be one or the other in your list. And now my list is only 4 pages long for me to look at instead of 7, or in your case, it might be, 13 pages instead of 75. So, and now you're just going to print this list and review it, and then circle the things you want recounted. Maybe because I'm missing all of these items, maybe I missed a file for import. That could happen. Of course, not perfect. So, so go out and do your recounts. Go back in. Now, unless you're missing everything, I would say at this point the handhelds need to be abandoned, and you're going to do all of your changes in physical count enter. So if I go back to my Atom -TL2 here, and they did find the other 5, I could either update this by 5, or because I have more count fields, put another 5 in and save that. There is a post button here. You want to save everything. This is your full annual count, and what you're looking for out of this is a full annual discrepancy list as well. If I start posting things individually, I'm not going to get that full list. So now when I go to my physical count enter, and I'm going to go to my edit list, so leave that, go back and set up my variances here. I don't want to see those. And I'm going to preview this, and when I look at for my TL2, it is now missing from the list because I found the 5 that were missing from my count. So I go from the SCD to the TL3 to the TL5. My one item, my TL2, is there. You would do your recounts, make your changes, reprint your edit list, review it again. If you find you want to send them out for a few more counts, do that. When you're done, when you feel that you have discovered the actual counts of all the items, you want to print a final variance report. So again, frozen actual counts variance, include the uncounted items, print the variances for the uncounted items, and print the non-zero variances. And in this case, you're going to leave this at 0 and 0 because you want all these variances. Preview this. I save it to disk. Again, I told you I'm a data hoard. So I'm going to save it to list. I'm going to save it to my C drive, to my counts. I should have put that as a quick access here. And now this is my final variance. There are other things that your accounting department may require for you to do. One of them may be that they just want to see the actual counts. You can do that. You can see what those actual counts are, and it will give you a list of those actual counts. So here we go. All right, so we've gotten through my counts. We've gotten all our counts recorded in Counterpoint. We've gotten through the variance list, and we've gotten our variances that we recounted, recorded, and taken care of. And now I have a variance report that is accurate and hopefully one I can live with. So we're going to post everything all together. In my physical count post, there we go. All right. Here, I can set my location. If I'm doing multiple locations, I probably want to deal with one at a time for the posting and the re-entries and the recounts. Posting date. You can check the box to use the freeze date. I am a little bit more controlling than that, so I always put in the date that I counted. So it could be a week before I'm ready to do this. Put in the date that you counted. You're not going to have your store closed for the whole week, sorry. But you may have to do your recounts. It may take time depending on what you have out there. I'm going to leave the document number as physical count. It's fine. And then your decisions here for uncounted items. This is important. It always defaults to skip. And what skip says is, I'm not done with those counts yet, but you can post everything else that I have counted. The uncounted items, not quite ready, leave them in my tables. Assume the quantity on hand is correct. Well, this is saying, well, it's not counted, but you know what? I'm going to let it go. I'm going to assume that everything is right in Counterpoint if I didn't count it. So yeah, take it off the list. I'm done dealing with it. Post everything else. And then here, this is actually probably the one that's most important. Assume the quantity counted as 0. So again, we're talking about the uncounted items. This one is going to reassign your quantity on hand for an uncounted item for whatever value is in there now, positive or negative, going to create that adjustment to make it 0. I didn't count any. I want Counterpoint to force that into 0 by using an adjustment. So this is the one that you most often will use so that all of those uncounted items do end up being 0. Now, just to be clear, your posting is still posting the variance against your frozen physical count transaction. So at this point, your store could have been open and your quantity on hand could have been changed by this point when you're doing your posting, and that's okay because I'm still managing this adjustment against what I froze on the day of the count, not what I have today. So I'm going to pick post. It's going through my posting routine. I've got a whole bunch of stuff that's going to 0. It's going to look ugly, let me tell you. There is a journal that goes with this. Physical count journal. I always set this to preview because, again, I keep telling you, I love data, so I am going to export this as well and say, okay, and go into my all pages, and I am going to here call this my journal, counted. So I'm going to save that. Your count journal tells you all of the counts, what you had on hand, the variances, and at the bottom it has, and I should have showed you this on the edit list too, it has a bottom. This is, top row is your totals. So my counted quantities, my quantity variance, my value of variance. These next 2 rows are more detailed, as in what do I have that was over counted, what did I have that was short counted. So this is not something I ever expect anybody to see, this large a cost variance. And probably you would restart everything all over again if you had something that large. And finally, what I would recommend is under inventory reports, you run your valuation report again. And again, you're going to set it, if you're doing a cycle count, for those same filters, and you're going to set it for the same location. And I'm going to preview this. And again, I save a copy of it. Now, some of this, if you have, see, I haven't really been showing you this. See this date range here? You could print out the last page for your, just, you know, for your files, if you really wanted a paper copy of something, to run the whole list. Again, some of you have some extensive item, have an extensive item list. Printing the whole list isn't really necessary unless it's required by your accounting team or your finance team or, you know, the board, whoever's out there. I'm going to say okay though. And again, I'm just going to go, now this is the valuation report after final count. So now I have the before, I have the journal, I have the after, so everything should tie out. I could also email this if I have my email set up. I could email this out to my accounting department or the interested parties and what the final count is. I'm going to close that as well. The difference between, you know, the full physical count, you're still going to, and a cycle count, is you're still going to prepare your inventory. You're still going to, if you're doing pre-counts, pre-count your storage areas for just those items that you're planning to count. Here is where the difference is in your physical count create. You're going to choose, you know, a category, a subcategory. I'm going to right click here. you could set up an attribute that is your, over here, you could set up an attribute that you use for this profile, and say that, alpha profile has to equal something, something, something. Basically what you're doing, and the reason I bring up attributes and profiles is because some people actually do plan out a cycle count for every month. And so that profile indicates which month is being counted right now. Or even sometimes the attributes are a better grouping than the category and subcategory based on how your store is managed or configured physically. So I'm going to right click and simplify this. I've got my alpha profile, but I'm going to use category, subcategory in this one. There we go, and create. So now all I'm really counting right now in my golf store is I'm only counting the golf clubs. So there are different ways that you can approach a cycle count. One, do a cycle count on fast-moving items, more often than once a year. And you can still do a full annual count, but maybe if those fast-moving items, you want to make sure you count. Or maybe you're looking at the dollar value. These are very expensive items. Maybe I have a jewelry case and I want to make sure I count that jewelry case at least 3 times a year. So plan out your cycle counts for what your focus is of what you want to collect or keep track of. Your cycle count is either going to be, if I do something every month and by the time I'm done, I've counted every category or every item over those 12 months, well, maybe I don't need an annual count because every item's been counted within the last 12 months. However, if I'm looking at things to make sure that I'm on top of theft or on top of spoilage, I'm going to, do those fast-moving items or do those items that disappear very quickly, and I'm going to do them frequently. So think about that, of how you want to do a cycle count to help you control your inventory. One last thing I've done here, just a quick tip. I actually made a physical count menu option. I'm calling it My Physical Count, but it has all of these items that I've been showing you, all these menus that I've been showing you in order that I want them to be done. So you could make your count more efficient in Counterpoint by setting up a menu so you're not jumping all around to get to the reports away from the physical counts, away from the utilities. So I think I've talked a lot.
That was great. Thanks, Diane. A lot of great information there, a lot of best practices too. So if you've done this a lot and you kind of know your way around, I think there's hopefully some good tidbits that people can take away from the best practices there. We do have a question coming in. Is it possible to do cycle counts by bin location?
Bin, actually, you can filter them by bin, but bins don't keep track of quantity on hand. So keep that in mind unless you have a customization that does that. Standard Counterpoint does not keep track of quantities by bin. But yeah, you can definitely cycle count by bin.
Okay. Sean says, important to configure the count freeze quantity in inventory control.
Yes, let's talk about that. Thank you, Sean. Under inventory control here, there is a count. Here we go. Here, during physical count, freeze the quantity by quantity on hand or quantity available. If you are counting with the store is closed, then quantity on hand is probably, and quantity available should be the same. Oh, no, sorry. Quantity on hand is the best way to go because the things that you have on order that are still in the store, you want to count. So you want to go by quantity on hand. When you would use quantity available, well, that is if your store is open. And remember that layaways and orders, customer layaways, customer orders are taken away from the available, so you wouldn't count those. So keep in mind, you know, when you're doing it by quantity available, why are you doing it by quantity available? What's not included in that normally? So it would be, you know, unposted transactions, orders, layaways. You don't have to worry about holds and quotes. They don't commit quantities. Purchase order quantities are not committed. So just be aware.
Thanks for the reminder, Sean. Tia says, we count a remote storage location the day before our physical count / freezing of the inventory. Is there a way to collect scans and then import them as a batch on the day we freeze inventory?
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't, yeah, if you pre-count your storage areas, you would not import them until the day of count to begin with. And it doesn't matter to you if you have 5 different files from your storage. You don't have to combine them together. Remember, Counterpoint will combine them on an import.
All right, the questions keep coming in. I'm not seeing bin locations as a customizable parameter on the physical count create.
Then I may have misspoke, but let's just check it out. Here's my list. Bin 1, 2, 3 in the list. You just have to customize it. Customize the filter.
Okay, hopefully that helped. Let me know if it didn't. Edward says, I had a discrepancy between the before and after inventory valuation that was a little higher than the discrepancy of the count difference. Could that have been due to the not recalculating the item quantities? Any other potential reasons for this discrepancy?
Yes, the other potential reason, so not necessarily recalc, though it could impact you. It's a good reason to do a recalc at least so you can see what you're dealing with. But when you're running your edit list here for your valuation, this is based on a current average cost. When you post, it is also based on a current average cost. So if I run this edit list and then, you know, check everything out, and during the time between I'm checking it and the time I actually post it, somebody receives something that changes the average cost, it is going to potentially change the value on the journal of what's been posted.
Hopefully that answers your question, Edward. Another question here. On the physical count post window in the 4 uncounted items frame, can you set up the assume quantity counted as 0 as the default? Yeah. Or is 0 as a default?
Can you set it as a default? No, there's not really a parameter to go with this. You always have to select it.
Bye, everyone. Have a great day.
All right.
Thanks.
Have a great day. Bye.